And then last question, are you aware of the 1937 banking Royal Commission into banking that basically said the central bank should be responsible for the control of volume of credit in the system? Are you familiar? Are you familiar with that recommendation?
I'm familiar with the Royal Commission. I haven't read it recently, I will confess. And not specifically that particular recommendation.
Okay, and the second part is that the distribution of credit should be the responsibility of private banks. I'm not for a minute suggesting that the RBA take over all private banking facilities, but in regards to control of the volume of credit in the system, I want to now refer to 1985, where Paul Keating's lifted all capital controls and basically allowed foreign banks to come in and lend to our private banks. And household debt has gone from 40% of GDP to 120% of GDP. Do you think it was reckless of the government at the time to completely lift capital controls and have no control over the type of capital that comes into the country and how it's used?
No, I think that Australia has done very well in the recent years since we floated the exchange rate and eliminated capital controls. It's allowed foreign investment to flow. I think that generally most people think that the deregulatory period, including the deregulation of the banks, allowed people to access credit who were previously credit constrained. So I think generally people would say deregulation has been a good thing.
Even though we've got 120% household debt and people are now struggling and rendered homeless?
We can get into debates about that, and there's a couple of, at least one good RDP explains that particular issue. But back in the heavily regulated days, people were credit constrained. So the minute you allow people to borrow, good credit risks who couldn't get credit before, then of course the debt to income ratio is going to rise. It also rises because as inflation has come down and interest rates have come down, the debt service ratio has come down. So that allows people to take on a bit more debt.
That's right, but now interest rates are rising.
And then finally, the final point I would make is that Australia, unlike many other countries, the rental housing stock is owned by households. So overseas it's owned by corporations, it's owned by governments. So the household debt is partly a result of the fact that the higher household debt is partly a result of the fact that we have the housing rental stock owned by households. So that's the other part. So there's a number of factors
I accept that.
that indicate why it's
okay, thanks, Jen.
Authorised G. Rennick, LNP Chermside.